So welcome to this tutorial video. This is a continuation of the web development front-end aspect of Fintech technologies. So now we'll be talking about overview of HTML basics, which include tags, attributes, elements, and web page structure. So after installing our VS Code, there is no further ado than to start learning how to write codes. So after we are done with HTML and CSS, we will talk about GitHub and how to set up a Git account, set up GitHub and go. So intensive overview of HTML basics, tags, attributes, elements, and web page structure. So you remember in our past videos I explained the definition of HTML, but I'm going to explain again in this video. So HTML means hypertext markup language, and this is a standard language that is used to create and structure web pages. So as I said something earlier about front-end development, so when we're talking about front-end development, there are three categories to it. We have structure, we have styling, and we have functionality. So when we're talking about structure, we're talking about building from scratch. Let's take for example a house structure. So a house starts from foundation level, then we start laying blocks, then before the lintel level, then roofing. That is structuring. We start by making foundation. Foundation is where the structuring starts from. Setting up the blocks, setting up how many rooms going to be in the house, how many toilets, how many bedroom. Those are structuring. But the fact that we start plastering, start putting accessories like painting, adding chandeliers, flowers and every other thing to the house, that's styling. While the functionality is the fact that once I switch off the light bulb in the sitting room, only the sitting room light bulb turns off. And once I go to the kitchen and turn on the fan in the kitchen fan turns on, not the one in the sitting room. That's functionality. I set something to do a particular function. That's functionality. So we are starting with structuring first because you have to take things one at a time in the hierarchy order. So we are starting with structuring first. So in structuring a web page, now if you look at, let me show you an example of a web page. So mm, let's say this is a web page. This is a web page now. For example, this is a web page, and this has all the three things I mentioned: structuring, styling, and functionality. So the fact that there is a space in between here, that's styling. I decided to style it my way. And the fact that once I click on the search button, it performs an action. Once I click here, it performs an action. I log out, performs an action. That's functionality. So the structuring is just a scratch, a raw data. Let me just put it that way, a raw format of a web page. So now, first thing first, it provides the foundation for every web page you see on the internet by organizing content, defining page layout, and structuring elements. To become proficient in front-end development, mastering HTML is the first essential step. In this guide, we will dive into basics of HTML, focusing on tags, attributes, elements, and how to structure a web page effectively. First question, what is an HTML? We have explained up here, it's an hypertext markup language that defines the structure of a web page and tells the browser how to display text, images, videos, links, and other elements on the web page. HTML uses tags to enclose and organize content into discrete elements which are styled to make more interactive using the CSS and JavaScript respectively. I will explain that. So when we're talking about HTML now, to start on a project, before anything, once you want to start a project, the first thing you do is create a folder. It's not compulsory you create a folder on the desktop like I just did. You can create it anywhere inside this place. You can create it anywhere here. Just create it at your own designed area. Then we will name it. Let's name this HTML tutorial, and then we open with VS Code. So after opening with VS Code, it means whatever thing we are styling in our VS Code will be inside the folder. So now mind you something, in beginning a in beginning coding, there is something we call index. So index is like the beginning of anything you want to do. At least before you do anything, there's Genesis in the Bible. That's the same way index it is in HTML. So now index is trying to tell the computer that this is the beginning. So for everything, for every project you start, you have to start with an index file. So now if you are doing HTML, we have to have a file where we write our HTML codes. So that brings us to coming up on this place. Then you see four options here. Click on the first option which says new file. There's another one that says new folder. There's another one that says refresh explorer, and there's another one that says collapse folder explorer. So let's test the four. This one collapses folder explorer, this one refreshes explorer, and this one creates new folder, and this one creates new file. So what we are starting with is creating a new file for our HTML. So we click on this, then we write index.html. Now let me explain this. When we start with index, it means beginning. Then the .html means what language are you writing this with, which is HTML language. That brings us to .html. Now if you look at some documents that they used to send to you, they'll be like PDF. If you call something a PDF file, you'll notice that at the end of every of these documents is a .pdf. If you saw something an APK application file, you will see something at the back that is .apk. Same goes to maybe Microsoft Word document. Now you will see .doc, that's .docs or .word wrd or .spl, a lot of dot. Those things, the thing that follows the dot is the type of document that it is. So we are trying to tell this computer that what I'm creating is an index in an HTML what type of file. So we press enter after writing that, then it opens it like this. Now we said three things about a very good website: structure, styling, and functionality. So the second one, which is styling, which is CSS, that's for styling, and JavaScript for what? For functionality. HTML is for structuring, CSS is for styling, and JavaScript is for functionality. So normal, we are supposed to create another file again that will be for styling. So we can name that one style, that's style.css. That is a CSS file. Then we can open another one that will be app.javascript. Mind you, JavaScript is not written fully like JAVA then the script. It is just shortened to be JS. You've noticed that the spelling of HTML is Hypertext Markup Language, but we can't write it in full. They shortened it to what? HTML. Same goes to CSS. Cascading Style Sheet is shortened to be CSS. JavaScript is shortened to be what? JS. So this is it. So now, after you've created an HTML file, you can create as many HTML as possible. You can create .fenry .html, your choice. You can decide to change it .adedonye.html, your choice. You can decide to be Falade.html, any other name. In as much you have already created an HTML an index.html, and the reason is because there are some situations where you deploy your website to show, and the first thing your deployment looks for is your index page. So, and if you don't have any index fail, it will just keep on looking for what is not lost and might give you a lot of problem. So that's the reason why it is orderly for you to start with a .html. Then the styling does not really have anything to do with naming, same as the JavaScript too. Now let's get started on HTML. So for now, we don't need the CSS, same as the JavaScript. So now let's go back to our notes. HTML, tags, attributes, and elements. Now, what is a tag? A tag is in HTML is a keyword enclosed in angles brackets that defines how the content should be interpreted by the browser. I will explain. Simple English. If we say if we say H1, for example, is a tag. So when your browser wants to read it, it reads the meaning of H1. It's already been programmed there. Like, okay, H1 means something thick and big, abi? Yes, so whatever it is you write inside turns out to be very big if you show it. So that's it. Your 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 structure is being read by the browser. So that is why we use tag to tell the browser the type of write up of the type of thing we are writing in that code. So now moving on, we say this is used to represent a tag. So we have two type of tag structure. We have an opening tag and we have a closing tag. Then we have the third one, which is self-closing tags. So I will explain what an opening tag is. Now, if you look at something, H1, for example, there's a difference between this and this. Might not be that visible, but there is a difference, and the difference is this. The reason why this is a difference is because this is an opening tag and this is a closing tag. Any tag that you see that has a slash here in immediately after the first bracket, it is a closing tag. And anyone that you did not see any of this forward slash there, it is an opening tag. So that's just the meaning of tags. Then when we're talking about self-closing tags, we have some tags that don't need you to that does not have the opening tag and does not have a closing tag. They only have just a single tag and they are good to go. Take for example img image. You don't need to add another one of img like this. You don't need to add this. No, you don't. That's because it closes itself. Same as the other ones like br. Br is a tag and it's self-closing. So and it's self-closing, you don't need to have another double and put br again. No, you don't need it because it's self-closing. So the other tags that are self-closing and that's going to be it. So we have the text or the data inside the tag. So now let's take for example what we're given here. This is a paragraph. Now how do you write this? If you want to write this on your computer, immediately after hem on your computer, you see the first bracket, you click on it and you write the tag name you put inside. It be like, let's take for example h2, then you close the bracket back. On most cases, due to extension, yeah, let me explain how extension now comes in. Now, you've noticed that immediately I close this bracket, the other tag came in. So instead of me now waiting to write this forward slash h2 forward slash h2, something like this, it automatically writes it for me. And that's the work of an extension. The extension knows that okay, once you create an open tag, you are obviously going to be adding a closing tag, except if it is a self-closing tag. So automatically it gives put it for you to ease your stress, which make your work faster and easier. So that is why we use extensions. So H2 closing H2 as it, and also on VS Code, I'm not sure if that can be an extension or it opens by default. Once the tag exists and you put, let's say for example, is a tag, article is a tag. Once you write the article first, once you write the article first and it exists as a tag, you will see this here. It's trying to tell you that this is a tag. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. If you see this, it means this particular thing you're writing is a tag, and you don't need to start writing. You need to start writing the first forward slash, then you now write article inside. You don't need it. You don't need it at all. So all you just need to just write the article. Once you are writing and you have seen what you're looking for, just click on it, or article, and once you have seen it, that the name is on it, you just enter and it writes for you. So that's some quick way to write. Before you know it, you have written a lot of pages and you not feel it. And that's because there's an extension that is helping you out, helping you to finish some things you might likely forget. So moving on, as we said earlier, this is a opening tag and this is a closing tag. So and the content now, this code here says this is a paragraph. This here that we write here is the content, is the one that shows in the browser. So the tag here will never show in your browser. The tag is only to read the type of thing you are writing. Either is an heading you are writing, that is an article you are writing, that is a italics you are writing or something. The tag is just to read it. It's just for the browser to read it while showing it to the content, which is this is a paragraph, is a content inside. So if you have something like Lorem 45, the whole content inside, the whole content inside, no matter how long it is or how short is it, the whole content inside the tag. So this is a paragraph is there. Some tags are self-closing and does not need a closing tag. I've explained that they're usually used for elements that don't have content between them, such as line breaks, image, and horizontal rows. I've explained how that image looks like, and this is another example of what it looks like again. Then for the break too, the BR I showed you the other time, that's for the break. So now the next one is attributes. HTML provide additional information about an element. Attributes are usually included in the opening tag and are typically consist of names, value, and lot more. So now let me explain what an attribute is now. So we say this gives us a class. What I'm trying to tell you that this class that is inside here is an attribute and is usually in the opening tag. So once you have an opening tag, you will start putting your attributes inside the opening tag if before you close it, and that's to tell your computer that don't show this on the browser but show the function. Now whatever function we put for this thing to do inside this place will never show outside, but you will see the work. Don't know if you are feeling me. So that's just that's the type of attributes. Then we have attributes like types. We have attribute like tabs. We have attribute like name. We have attribute like ID. We have attribute like what else? What else? There are a lot of attributes. A lot of attributes. So first assignment is write 100 tags that you can come across and their function. That's the first assignment. So now, common attributes includes class, as I've explained earlier, ID, source, href, alternative. So the class is used to apply CSS styling to an element. The ID provides a unique identifier for an element. The source specifies the source URL of an image or external resources. The href specifies the destination URL for a link. Now I'll show you where to use all this. Now I've showed you where to use a class. So this is how to use the class. Now if you want to use the ID, is just the way we wrote the tag that we write it. Just put a space and ID, enter, then write the remaining for you. Instead of you waiting to write is equal to, then the double column, it automatically writes for you, make the work easier. So the class and the ID might be performing the same function. They are just for unique identifying, and that's all. Just for you to know that okay, this is specifically for this. That's what the attribute is being used for. Now the next one we have to do is the source. So now if you remember vividly, I wrote an image. I said img. Instead of writing image imag, you just write img, enter. Then this is an attribute here, and this is another attribute. So there are a lot of attributes. Then the next one is href. Now, part of a closing tag, we have a href. It is not a self-closing tag. So the href here. Now, if you look at the tag A means anchor tag. That is, you have to lead me somewhere. I am supposed to anchor you. I'm supposed to like help you get somewhere. That's the meaning of anchor. Help you accomplish a mission. That's href. That's the work of an href. So the href is like a reference that okay, go to so place. When I click on this button, do so thing. So that's the what href is used for. Go to somewhere. So now moving on, the alt. Now if you look at our image tag, you see it here, alt, that is alternative. If the source is not being read, the alternative will be read. Now let's say for example, if you had an image here and the image is not found, instead of it just going blank, you should have filled this alternative with okay, this okay, the alternative should be main logo. Say for example, main logo. That's the alternative. So once there is an image that's not showing here, then an alternative of main logo pops up there. So that's the attributes. So example is a href tag blanket. So here an a tags and anchor tag. I've explained that, and element. As I explained earlier, the element is used like ID. It's just used to make up. It is just used to create a complete entity of a content. Now let me take for example an HTML element like this. This one is an HTML element. So now welcome to my what's the then test elements. So all these are still the same thing I've explained earlier. So we are moving down to structuring a web page. Structuring a web page is crucial for both user experience and SEO, search engine optimization. That's the meaning of SEO. That is when they are looking for something, your website should pop up. That's the work of a search engine optimization. Search engine optimization. So HTML provide a very good way to to organize your content in a meaningful hierarchy using different types of tags and what and elements. So the basic HTML skeleton. Now I will explain something in here. We need to listen attentively very well here. So now in HTML there are others there are other two things. Now take for example, I want to build a blog and I want to use HTML to start it. I have to do some things to serve as compatibility that okay, is this thing going to show on my browser? Is this thing going to go well on my browser? Is this going to go well on any other screens I've done? So that is why other arrangement is necessary. So now this you don't need to cram this. You're not going to be you don't need to cram all this because you might likely not be writing it. So on a norms, VS Code has ease our stress of writing this one after the other. Like imagine writing for open class as exclamation mark dot document type HTML, HTML like English and other code. That's going to be very, very stressful. That's the reason why VS Code brought up a very short method which is shift one. So your shift button and your one and enter will write it for you. The same thing the way they wrote it there. I hope you are feeling me now. So this makes it easier since this is a generally accepted procedure. So VS Code has already kept it for you that you don't need to stress yourself writing it one after the other again. So now moving on, there's there is need for me to explain what all these mean. That not look like magic in your presence. So the first thing here is document type. So doc type means document type. This is to tell the computer that what type of document am I writing this code in, and this at the front HTML. Then the next one that says HTML tag says language EN, that is English. So that's the meaning. Then inside, now speaking of something, there is something in life that I said in HTML needs hierarchy. So there is head, there is body, and there is what? Nothing. So we have head and the body, just like the part of the body, we have the head and we have the body. So under the body, there is now category again. There are categories under the body again, but they are all orderly arranged. That is not the story for today, that's the story of another day. So now the next thing is the head. So I said something about the first two things you have to do in our HTML page is structuring, and structuring comes with an hierarchy. Comes with a procedure. Okay, this is what should come first, this is what should come second, this is what should come next. So that is why for every of your HTML tag there will be an head and a body, and normal the head should come first. That is why there is head here and there is a body there. So now moving on, Meta Chat Set UFT8. This define the character encoded of the web page to ensure that there's a special character and symbol are displayed correctly. That's just the meaning of this. It makes sure that your special characters, your symbol have displays according to plan. That's the meaning. So as I said, you don't really need to know the meaning of these ones. You need to know the meaning, but you might not really be like stressing yourself writing one after the other. So there's another section of it that says meta name viewport content width screen width initial scale 1.0. These are just to these are just to maximize responsiveness. This section is just for you to just for your web page to be adjusting very well, to be responsive no matter the type of screen it's on. So that's the point of having this meta name viewport, a content of which device with an initial scale of 1.0. Now the next one is the title. So now the title here, notice that on this platform here, there is something that shows here Lenovo X1 Yoga Online. This is a title. So and so it is in HTML too. So you have to put something on your what? Your title. Our title name is HTML tutorial. So HTML tutorial. That's going to be our name. You can give it any name you want. In as much as portraying what you are doing, you are good to go. So we have done the title, then we have the body. Then inside this body, we now have three categories again. The header, we have more than three, but they are basic three that is often needed. So we have main, and we have footer. These are just the basic three things that is going to be in your body. Then every other thing you are writing inside comes inside any of the three. So moving on, semantic HTML. So when we say semantic HTML, it refers to using HTML tag that describes the meaning and purpose of the content they enclose. They has both accessibility for screen recorder and SEO to secure search engine to understand the content. So example of a semantic element: header, nav, section, article, footer. So when we are talking about semantic, now take for example, footer means something in the bottom. So this is what semantic, because its name itself tells you what its function is. That's why that is called the semantic one. Now let's take for example these ones. You have header, nav, section, article, and footer. It is called it is called semantic because they represent exactly the purpose of what they enclose. That's just the meaning. So now we have an header, H1 header, nav, article, and footer. So now those are just basic HTML tags. So if you sort your assignment of giving me 100 tags that you know, HTML tags that you know, then you might be the one to teach the next topic. Just kidding. Just kidding. Just do the assignment. The assignment is write 100 HTML tags that you can think of. So now the next one is block level versus inline element. Now, when they call something block in coding, block is just something that is on a set line and nothing is disturbing it beside it. Basic meaning. That's just the basic meaning. And then by default, there are most tags takes a block level element. Now, let's take for example an H1. If you are writing an H1, you want it to be very big because it's called H1. The full meaning is header one. So that is the first header. That's the biggest. And now, if you are taking the first header, H1, it means I can put H1 and maybe put somebody's name, and the next one I will put another tag that will be H14. H14 does not exist, just saying it. H14 and it's better than that name and it will not be beside it. No. But most time it's what? It goes block. That is, it will be on a straight line and nothing will be obstructing it beside it. Why inline element means it will be on still the same line. Now, for example, on this same line, that's for inline. But we're talking about block. This will break, this will break, a lot of things will break. That is why it is block. Just one particular subject on one particular line. That's block. Why inline is as many as possible. As much as they can occupy the what? The line. So that's the explanation of block and what and inline. Now nesting elements. So when they say nesting element can be defined by a situation whereby another layout is used to create another layout. Now let's take for example, I have inside my header now, I want to have two sections. But inside the section, I want to have nav, nav tag. Then inside the tag, I want to have UL, and inside the UL, I want to have an LI. So this is to tell you that this is a nested page. That is the first one, which is the header, give rise to the second one, which is the section. Then the section gives rise to navbar. Navbar gives rise to UI, UL, and UL give rise to what? To LI. So that's just what nesting element means. So that will be the end of this video. The next one will be it will be a more advanced way, but to gain more knowledge and to understand better, do the assignment by providing 100 elements and their function. Then in our next video, we'll be collecting the assignment and making corrections. So conclusion, HTML forms the backbone of any website. That is, for every website to exist, there must be an HTML that does the structuring. So for every building to come up, you can't just suddenly plaster an air. You have to create a structure that you will plaster when you are plastering your house. That's the way HTML is. HTML is a structure where you can style. Simple. So by understanding the basis of HTML tags, attributes, and elements, you can create a well-structured and a meaningful web page. Additionally, learning to structure a web effectively using semantic HTML embraces accessibility, SEO, and what? And maintenance. These are just these are just trying to wrap up everything I'm talking about. We have spoken about semantic HTML, I've spoken about structuring of web pages, and a lot. So that'll be all for today's video. See you in the next video. Thank you very much.